Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. Tonight's video features story of the paranormal nature. If you enjoy hauntings and ghosts, demons and apparitions, this video is for you. Sit back, relax, stay sinful. My name is Ryan, and this is my true scary story. Now, I never really believed in ghosts or demons before. I mean, yeah, sure, I believe people when they said things, but it's just hard to believe something you've never seen before. When I was 19, I stayed the night at my ex's place on the couch by myself in a house built in the 1920s. Now, my ex had said the house she lived in was haunted and things would move around on their own. That's all I ever really heard from her, until I experienced it firsthand. Now, to give you an idea of the room layout, you walk into the house. On the left there are stairs going up, and to the right there is a couch facing away from the stairs. Now, when I'm laying on the couch, you cannot see the stairs, but you can hear when someone comes down them for sure. And that couch is where I was sleeping. One night when I was sleeping peacefully, at about 4 a.m, something woke me up. I heard footsteps walking down the stairs. I simply thought someone was walking down to the living room, but when I looked up, there was no one. I chalked it up to my imagination or something, and then went back to sleep. About a week later, the same thing happened again. I woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and I heard footsteps, but this time I heard whispering. But it wasn't your average whispering. The best way I could describe it would be 10 voices whispering nonsense all at the same time. At this moment, I froze with fear. I felt like I couldn't do anything except throw my blanket over my head and hide. I heard the steps creaking closer and closer to the couch. But then as fast as the voices came, they stopped. I finally gathered up enough courage to look behind the couch and at the stairs. But lo and behold, when I looked, there was nothing there. About another week after the second incident, as I fell asleep, I had convinced myself that what had happened the previous weeks had just been myself dreaming. But I know now I had just been telling myself that just so I'd be able to sleep. I honestly should have just taken the hint. After falling asleep just for a few hours, I had awoken to myself standing at the edge of the couch, looking up the dark stairs. At the top there was a black figure, blacker than black, that struck fear into my heart and soul. It gives me chills just talking about it right now. My eyes are starting to water up. It was like staring into hatred, evilness, and everything that was not good. It was like a cloud of evil. I couldn't move and I couldn't scream. As the apparition moved closer towards me, the stairs creaked. At that moment, I thought it would never end. And I opened my eyes, and I was lying on the couch where I had fallen asleep. But that wasn't the worst part. I opened my eyes and I was frozen. I wasn't able to move, unable to scream, unable to do anything. I can still hear the footsteps coming closer towards the couch from the stairs. Whispering started and got louder and louder, and I can hear the footsteps coming closer. Fear is running through my entire body. Whatever this thing is, was now right behind the couch. Then some sort of black hand reached over and grabbed my shoulder. As soon as this happened, I was able to move again. I didn't care about anything at that point. I screamed and yelled and ran and woke up everybody in the house. As I started talking to the parents and my ex, they told me that their house was haunted, and what I had experienced was experienced by their entire family. And that explains why none of her relatives ever come over to the house to stay the night. I was curious about the history of the house, so I went to the local library to look up the history. It turns out the house was built in the 1920s by one man that lived in it for 30 years until 1950. After that, a couple bought the house, and 1 year later they sold it. And after that, another couple bought it, lived in it for 1 year, and then sold it. This pattern happened 6 or so times, people purchasing the house and then abruptly selling it. On top of all of this, when my ex's parents purchased the home, they found 30 or 40 crucifixes scattered on the walls and on the floors. If that's not a red flag, I don't know what is. But I'll tell you one thing. I didn't believe in ghosts and demons before this moment, but I do now. Story number 2. This is one of the weirdest experiences I've had to date, and I'm still not sure entirely how it happened. I was house sitting for my aunt and uncle a few months ago. I've spent plenty of time in their home before and looked after it alone, and I've never felt anything good, bad, or otherwise. I mentioned to my girlfriend that this time something felt off. The dogs were extremely restless, and I was hearing things that I hadn't heard before. She offered to come stay with me, which I should have known would get interesting, because she tends to attract things. So the evening began quite normally. We watched some Netflix and were chilling in the TV room when we started hearing odd noises. There were very pronounced sounds coming from the living room. We decided to walk into the kitchen, switching on all the lights as we went. We saw nothing. My girlfriend, knowing her stuff, grabs a salt and creates a salt line in front of the door to the TV room. We can still see out of the living room, so she aims her camera phone out there and starts taking pictures. We were astounded to see orbs in most pics, including one very large one that looked as if it was moving at quite a fast pace. Sometime during the evening, things had quieted down. We went off to shop to get smokes. We arrived back to find one of the dogs in visible pain, having injured her leg, and both of them were very agitated. Also, some money that we had left under a heavy cross on the table had been moved. There's no way it could have been blown away or anything. My girlfriend has experience with these things, and even she was a little freaked out. We walked past the passage door and paused to have a look down there. And this is when the freakiest thing of the whole night happened. I was standing next to her, and as we looked down the passage, something unseen rushed at us. She just turned and ran, and I followed her, but I could feel this force behind me until we got past the salt line. We stayed there the rest of the evening. We had a quartz lamp on the whole night and made sure the salt line stayed there. Don't think either of us got any sleep. The rest of the nights I stayed there minus my girlfriend, and everything was fine. No reports of any weirdness from the family either. There is a hospital close by, so I'm not sure if my girlfriend just drew something in from there or what. But she is a bit of a lightning rod for those things paranormal. Can these things be drawn to her even if they don't normally hang around certain places? Usually she attracts things when we go places, but they are often attached to people or the place. But this was neither. Any insights or ideas welcome. Story number 3. This took place 5 years ago when I was in a fraternity. The fraternity house was built sometime in the early mid-1800s, around 1850 I think. It was all white with tall 2-story columns and wood paneling. It was added onto in the 1970s to house the increased number of people living there. Anyway, the original house and property used to be a plantation. It had a rock wall surrounding the lawn. I'm not sure if it was original from the plantation days or added after, but it was in total despair, as if not even a wall anymore, just a line of piled rocks around the place. The house itself had a parlor with a piano in it to the left, a library to the right, and a fireplace in the center facing the library, with a staircase attached when you walked in. There were 5 bedrooms upstairs, and another bedroom and apartment-type area downstairs, near the back of the house, that our house dad lived in, but was probably a servant's quarters originally. We knew for certain that there had been one death in the home, and possibly a second. The property owner's son put a shotgun in his mouth and killed himself in the parlor when they still owned the property. This was 90 years before it became a frat house, around 1940. Now that you have some idea what this house looks like, I'll get to the story. It was final weeks at the end of the semester. When anybody had to study, they generally used the library at the front of the house, as it was away from the bedrooms and somewhat quiet. It was a 12-foot by 12-foot room, the walls lined with old, smelly, yellow-paged books, and it had a round table with 4 chairs in the middle of the room. I was pulling an all-nighter with one other kid, Teddy, and nobody else in the house was awake. Not the original part of the house, anyway. I would be able to hear the floors creak, and the walls were thin enough to hear conversations in rooms upstairs from downstairs. I was sitting in the chair with my back to the window and facing the fireplace that you pass when you walk in. The mantle of the fireplace had a few candles on it and maybe a fake plant in the center. Teddy says he's going to get his cigarettes from his dorm room and leaves, so I go back to studying on my own. I look up and I see this one candle on the fireplace mantle moving back and forth like a metronome. The base of the candle was firmly planted on the mantle's beam, but the candlestick itself was just moving back and forth. Not like swinging, but it would lean to one side and rest, and then begin to slowly move back over to the other side and repeat. Perplexed, I got up and stood in front of the candle and watched as it did this. The candle was a foot in front of my face. I'm thinking there must be a window open, so I go around the room and check that all the windows and doors are shut, and return to the candle once more. Then I think that it must be rolling around the rim of the candle holder, sort of how you can move a straw around in an empty cup. But it wasn't rolling around the edge. It just went from leaning one side, slowly standing upright, and then leaning to the other side at a 45-degree angle. So I'm standing there just staring at this thing when Teddy comes walking down the hall, asking if I'm ready to smoke. I look at him and then back at the candle. It's upright again and not moving. I asked him if he saw it, and he said he only saw me staring at the mantle as he was coming down the hall. I still haven't found an answer as to how the candle could move like that, but I didn't want to go around talking about it and get made fun of. I did casually ask around if anything has ever happened to anyone else in that house, and I only got 2 answers. The first was that sometimes people heard the piano playing music when no one was in the parlor, and the second was from the president of the fraternity. He was required to stay in the house over winter break to make sure that the heat was on, pipes wouldn't freeze, basic maintenance stuff, etc. He said that after everybody left for winter break, it snowed. Not much, maybe 2 to 3 inches. On his 4th night there on his own, he heard a knock at the front door, which was not common. So he goes to open the door and there's no one there, except there's footprints in the snow leading up to the door, and no footprints leading away. He said he grabbed his bags and left and didn't go back until the rest of the students started showing up for spring semester. Thanks for watching, guys. Please make sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe for further content. I hope you guys enjoyed these truly horrifying paranormal stories. Until we meet again, stay sinful.